Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Shell Nut. Super excited to bring this episode to you. Candy and I were finally able to get back to Sanibel Island in Fort Myers Beach early in the morning to enjoy a beautiful sunrise and explore the morning rack line of shells. We were also able to jump into the water and get a little bit of footage of some critters and shells right there at the Lighthouse Point. And super happy to just be back, one of our favorite places to shell in the whole world. We also journeyed across the bridge to Fort Myers Beach and explored some of the recovery efforts there and hopped on the beach, and we're delighted to find a real nice rack line of shells on this beach also, and had a real pleasant walk on the beach, and were able to find a few beautiful treasures to add to our collection there. So fun video, hope you enjoy. All right, our journey begins way too early in the morning. The dash on the truck there says 4:09. It was probably 3:30 when we woke up. And why do we wake up so early and do this? Because there's a lot less traffic. All the traffic lights, there's about 50 of them, are usually green, so it saves us a lot of time. And because we want to catch a sunrise. The sunrises on Sanibel Island are gorgeous, and we just love to be there early in the morning and have a full day to shell. And so we made our way across the causeway, and we made ourselves into the parking lot. There was probably a dozen cars there already. You do have to pay by phone. They haven't restored the machines yet, but you do still have to pay here. So we went ahead and paid, and when we jumped out, there was no breeze whatsoever, and we were greeted by the ultimate swarm of no-see-ums. You can't see them here on the camera, but they are everywhere. They were really thick, and so we had to start moving pretty quickly, but it was a gorgeous sunrise, beautiful, some big clouds off on the horizon, and we were rewarded as usual by just this gorgeous sunrise on Sanibel Island. You can't beat it. It's amazing. And we started to look for some shells. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of wind or waves the preceding week, so the rack line really didn't have much in it. There was some little shells here and there. I think my wife finds a little cardita here. There were plenty of those, and plenty of little ones to find, which are fun. You know, the little ones can be just as much fun as the big ones. So we got to work on some of the little ones. Here's a real pretty calico. The calicos in Sanibel and on the Gulf Coast are so pretty. A lot of times they'll have the orange stripes in them, and they'll be real deep colored. That's a little spiny jewel box. We find some much bigger hinged ones later. Can't wait to show you that footage. And we also found our lone Florida fighting conch. That was the only one we found on this beach, but we were happy to find one. They're a beautiful shell. I don't care how common they are. They're an amazing shell. And here's a cute little apple myrix. It's got a little chip in it, some things growing on it, but those will clean right off, and we love apple myrixes, so that was a nice find. And here she finds another real pretty, deep, rich purple calico scallop. Never get tired of collecting those. Beautiful, beautiful shell. And up next we have, she's journeyed into the water a little bit to see what's floating around in the water, and we have a juvenile Florida fighting conch. The juveniles are much different than the adults. They have some texture to them and different coloration, and sometimes some cool patterns and striping. And so we love to collect the juveniles as much as the large ones. And here's a cute little hinged coquina. I think I called them a periwinkle when I was little, but I think does anybody else call them periwinkles? That's what I used to call them, but real cute. And so now we've jumped into the water, because we always snorkel when we come here as well. We've had actually a lot more luck snorkeling than we have walking the beach. And so we're in the water snorkeling right around the lighthouse, and we find this larger lightning whelk, but it's a little chipped up and worn down, but we kept it anyway because it was a little slow today. And we found this another cute little apple myrix out in the water. I think I bring this one out of the water and show you exactly where I'm snorkeling. There is some debris left over from the hurricane, some big chunks of concrete and some pipes and stuff, but it's not sharp or jagged. It's pretty easy to snorkel around, so it's not too bad. And we had fun snorkeling here. It was kind of early in the morning, so the clarity wasn't that great, but we found this super cute little starfish there's always lots of starfish in this area, so that's why it's one of our favorite places to snorkel. And we found one more fighting conch while we were here. Look how amazing that sand is. It's so fine and powdery. It's what Sanibel's famous for. It's why the shells are always in such good shape, because they don't get sanded down as much as they do on the East Coast. Super cute shell. But that was really all we found. I'm just going to leave you with some sights and sounds of Sanibel Island. All right, so after stopping for a little breakfast and lubing up on ointment for our no-see-um bites, we headed to Fort Myers Beach, and we're coming across the causeway here, and this is our first chance to get a good look at what happened, or how the recovery's going here in Fort Myers after the devastating Hurricane Ian. If you didn't know, that Hurricane Ian really hit Fort Myers Beach hard. Over 15 feet of storm surge, and everything you see here was completely underwater. But it's nice to see that it's slowly coming back to life. It's been a year. When it's that strong of a hurricane, it usually takes 2 to 3 years to fully recover. But the recovery's underway. There's some places that still have a long way to go, but there's some places that are recovering. So it's kind of nice to see that. But this is a reality for folks that live on the coast in Florida. If you don't live here, if you're thinking of moving here, this is what can happen to the town that you live in, and that's kind of the trade-off of living in paradise. And even if you live in a big condo, you're up high, you're not safe, because the infrastructure of the condo can be destroyed, and there's still a lot of condo buildings a year later that aren't inhabited. That one was inhabited. That was nice to see some cars back in front of that one, but a lot of the condos haven't been inhabited again yet, and so there's, its recovery can be slow. And you can see the home on the left had a metal roof, and it didn't matter. It peeled that metal roof right off. So when the winds are, and this restaurant was designed to take a hurricane, and it was completely gutted, and it still hasn't rebuilt yet. Or I'm not sure if that was a restaurant or something else. But anyway, things are recovering. Fort Myers Beach, we love you. We sending you a big hug and all of our support. The beaches here are gorgeous. It's a wonderful place to come. So come, please visit Fort Myers Beach and show them some love. Maybe spend a little money at the restaurants and the businesses, and check out the beautiful beaches they have. They're not as crowded as some of the others, and so it's a good place to come to find shells, or just to get a little stretch of beach to yourself. And we were ecstatic to hop onto the beach. We went about halfway down Fort Myers Beach. So we're about at the midway point, and we stepped onto the beach, and there was a little bit of seaweed. It had kind of an aroma to it, but you get used to it after a while. And there was an onshore breeze, so as soon as you got to the west side of the seaweed there, it wasn't so bad. And there were lots of shells. Again, not as crowded as some of the other beaches, so you might have a little bit better chance to find some shells on these beaches. And so we were super excited to see more shells than we saw in Sanibel. We have a lot of footage. And as you can see on this rack line, we're starting to see some chunkier shells, some bigger shells. So that's really cool. Here's a pin shell, kind of hinged. They're big. We don't keep those, but they're kind of cool. And a hinged bivalve and a Florida fighting conch. We saw a lot of Florida fighting conchs, and so we didn't keep all the ones that we saw. But again, we started our walk down the beach, and we started to see bigger items and more shells. And so we got a lot of great footage from Fort Myers Beach to show you. We're excited, so let's go ahead and show you all the shells we found. So up first in our hunt for beach treasures are 2 Atlantic giant cockles. We have plenty of these. They're beautiful, but they take up a lot of room, so I left those for the next person. But they're a great, beautiful shell. We get them on the East Coast as well. And up next we have a beautiful lettered olive. It's nice and pointy and shiny. The olives that we find on the Gulf Coast are generally in better condition, better gloss coat and better pointiness than the East Coast. And here we have a half of a rose petal tellin. We find a lot of these rose petals on Fort Myers Beach. It's a good place to find those. And we have a cardita, plenty of those. Let's see, up next I'm sorting through, and we find a seraph, cute little seraph. Always love the different seraphs and augers that you can find on both coasts. And we have here, we have another lettered olive. That one was a little worn down, so I left that one. But it's a great rack line of shells. It's keeping me pretty busy. Love it when there's shells everywhere. Little piece of a fighting conch, and then a cone, cute little cone. Can't quite tell what kind of cone that is, but that was really our only cone of the day. And then we have a piece of a banded tulip and another seraph, a little bit bigger one. So it's a great little spot for shells, and another lettered olive. And I did the pointiness check and the gloss coat, and that was a keeper, so I kept that one. But again, real happy to find all these shells along the water's edge. It seems like a great place where they're collecting. So I'm just going to walk along further and keep picking them up. Let's see, what do we have next? Went out in the water a little further here because I spotted this. This is a parawhelk. Love parawhelks. Very delicate shell. Sometimes it's a little broken near the aperture, but that was a keeper. And up on the shore, my wife's searching, and she finds a barely hinged spiny jewel box. It's a little weathered, a little dirty, but that cleaned up. But we're always happy to find spiny jewel boxes, and as you're about to see, we're going to find a few more that are in amazing condition. It was a spiny jewel box kind of day. And here she finds an angel wing, or could be a false angel wing. Can't quite tell, but we went ahead and left that one. And she's up higher in the rack line, and she's finding some different shells up there. That's a smaller. It looks like a smaller giant Atlantic cockle, I'll guess. And she finds a couple augers, I think, up here as well. And what do we have here? A coquine, a little smaller one. Some baby butterflies. They look like little butterflies to me. We found some really big ones in our last video, in the California video. It's amazing how big the coquinas are in the Pacific Ocean in Southern California. And she finds a couple of those here. And what else does she find hunting for the little juveniles up here? And she finds another little auger. That one's a little better shaped, a little bit more pointed. And another, a bigger one. It's a pretty one. It's got some different color to it. And then lastly, I think she finds another coquina, a little bit more pattern on them. So great little finds up high. She's been covering the upper rack line, and I'm down near the water's edge, and she finds a juvenile fighting conch as well. So a nice little collection of shells she's found there in that little pile. And back down in the lower rack line, I have discovered a giant lettered, alphabet cone, and unfortunately, it's busted. So I put it back down, and the next person will probably be as excited as I was when they find it. And this is our tribute to the Sunray Venus clams. I find a little bit larger one, and then I find a little bit smaller one, both parked right next to each other. And they're such a pretty shell. They really are amazing, the patterns on them. And here is one of the larger prickly cockles I've ever found, and it's really pretty on the other side, that great color. So I went ahead and held on to that because that's one of the nicer ones I've ever found, and real pretty shell. And I went back out further into the water again because I spotted some chunky things, and I started to see a kind of a collection of fighting conchs all right next to each other. Now that's not in bad shape, but I think I put that one back because I see some others in the area that I see they all kind of congregated next to each other. And this is a keeper. This is a real pretty one. It's got a sharp point on it, really pretty color. It's in really great condition, and I definitely hold on to that. Real happy to find that one. And in the same area, I find, hey, a moon snail, shark eye, and a little darker, got some cool pattern on it than we find on the East Coast, so I kept that. And then I find this really pretty banded tulip. It's kind of a whitish color, a little bit different tint, than it's got some barnacles on it, but those will pop right off, and that's a real nice find. Happy to find that. And then back up on the beach, my wife discovers this cute little cross of shells that somebody put together. Really creative, really cute. Whoever did this, really nicely done. It's really beautiful. So sometimes you see folks put together things like this, and I think that's cool. So if you're doing that, keep up the great work. We love it. And up next, Candy has spotted a gorgeous apple murex. One of the prettiest ones we've ever found. It's a really pretty shell. It's a really great find on her part. It's a little bit dirty. We'll clean it up, but it's just almost in mint condition with a lot of great color. So it's a really nice find, babe. Way to go. And up next, she finds a parawhelk. It's kind of pure white. It's a little bit of the pattern and color is worn off. And then what has she spotted here? A cute little auger. Nice. It's a little bit darker colored auger. And she's finding some of these shells in this right along the water's edge as well. That was a shark eye. It was a little busted. And then what does she spot here? She finds another auger. So two great little augers right there next to each, in that same area. So nice job, babe. And up next we have it's a beautiful Florida fighting conch. And I remember this one because it had such a great pattern on it. Nice zigzag pattern, nice and pointy. All the horn or the little spines on it are in great shape. And it's got a little periostracum on it, but that'll clean up with a little bleach and water. And that'll be a great example of a Florida fighting conch. So that's a really nice find for the day. And then up next we have an angel wing. And this one's got a little bit of a hole in it. But otherwise it's in great shape. So I think we hold on to that because that's a real pretty shell. And they are so correctly named because when you put them together, they do look like angel wings, don't they? Such a good name for the shell. And then here we have a cross-barred Venus clam, and it's hinged, and it's got a lot of color to it. Sometimes they're kind of whitish, but that's got some pattern on it. It's real pretty, and it's fun when you find a hinged one like that, so we went ahead and kept that one. And up next, my wife finds another. Oh, no, this is me, actually. I find a spiny jewel box, and it's a little dirty, but this one's in really good shape. It's got some spines on it. It's hinged. I'm always happy to find a hinged spiny jewel box. They're not easy to find. They're basically impossible to find hinged and with spines on them on the Atlantic side. But on the Gulf side, you can find these really great examples, and that's a really nice one. So I'm happy to add that to our collection. That's a good find. And up next, it looks like I have found a lettered olive. It was a great day for lettered olives. Another shiny one, nice and pointy and really good condition. We love the lettered olives that we find on the Gulf Coast. And I know they're everywhere, but when you're on the East Coast, you just don't find them so pretty like that. So we tend to keep quite a few. And then the last shell, no, not the last shell of the day, my apologies. This is another spiny jewel box that we found. And this one's even got even more spines on it. And so again, wow, we just can't believe all these great spiny jewel boxes that we found. And up next we have, my wife finds a hinged Dulcinea. You can find a lot of great hinged bivalves on the Gulf Coast. So it's always fun to come back to these. You don't find too many hinged of anything on the east side. So it's fun to find these hinged examples of some of these beautiful shells. And then lastly, we have our most beautiful shell of the day. This is a huge and almost mint condition spiny jewel box that my wife finds just gorgeous. And look at that beautiful purple in color on the inside. It was actually one of the last shells, if not the last shell of the day. We found that as we were walking back to the car. And so unbelievable, great find. Super happy with that shell. All right, everyone, it's time to review the loot. On the right, we have what we found in Sanibel in a couple hours. And on the left, we have what we found in Fort Myers in about 1 hour. So Fort Myers Beach was much more productive than Sanibel, but we still found some fun stuff in Sanibel. We found some real pretty disc Dulcineas. I think we soaked these in bleach for a little while to make them real pretty. And a cute little assortment of Murexes and three fighting conchs, kind of a beat up lightning whelk, a few turkey wings, and a few odds and ends. And we always find some pretty calico scallops, but maybe a little drill too. I think that's a drill, but not too much at Sanibel. But it was great to go back to Sanibel, and it is coming back to life, and we're happy to see that. And it's just fun just to walk around that lighthouse area and walk on that beach again. And so thank you, Sanibel. And Fort Myers Beach was very productive for just 1 hour. Really had a great time. The highlights are all these amazing olives that we found, these lettered olives. The glossiness of the Gulf Coast olives, you just can't beat them. That's one of the highlights. A few of the other highlights is we found a real pretty apple murex. That was a real nice one. A couple pretty banded tulips, a few pear whelks, and a lot of serifs and augers, and a real big prickly cockle. That's one of the bigger ones that we found. And this was a hinged Dulcinea and a little bit of a worn down shark eye, but still kind of pretty. And a really cute assortment of fighting conchs, Florida fighting conchs. And the miniatures, the juveniles, have such pretty patterns on them. They're really remarkably different than the larger ones. So we got a great little collection of those. But for sure, the highlight of our trip and it really made the whole trip worthwhile, was we found 4 hinged spiny jewel boxes. 4. I mean, I think we'd only found 1 at a time in the past. So to find 4 was really amazing. And this big one here is definitely the highlight in our collection for this species. I mean, what a fantastic spiny jewel box that is. All 4 of them are just gorgeous, but this one is really a fantastic find for us. We're ecstatic about that find. So it was a really fun trip. It was great to get back over there, and hopefully we can get back over there again soon. Maybe, I think when we went there, there weren't a lot of, it wasn't a lot of wind and waves beforehand. So, but still, look at how much we found. That's just how amazingly productive the Gulf Coast is. So thank you to Fort Myers Beach as well. Had a lot of fun there. And thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you.